I'd like to take us back in history, 100 years to be specific, back to 1914. Now, some of you may know, this might be a nerdy political science thing, but we're celebrating the 100-year anniversary of the origins of World War I. And there's been lots of articles, lots of stories, lots of events commemorating it. You've probably seen some poppies as well when they have these events and are remembering that. They have lots of poppies to remember the event. And the reason for the poppies is kind of an interesting thing. So as the war was playing out, as World War I was coming to an end, and the fields of Western Europe were devastated, the first plant that would pop up was the red poppy. So you had thousands of these popping up in these barren fields that had been destroyed by the war. Suddenly you're seeing a sea of red poppies popping up, oftentimes around bodies. It was a very dramatic thing, and it led John Mackay, who wrote this famous poem in Flanders Field, talking about the devastation and the destruction of World War I and what it means. And there's no way I can summarize or reflect on the entire war. So what I would like to do today is talk about one day in World War II, and hopefully that'll be an inspiration to maybe get you to go out and do a little digging. And that day is June 28th, 1914. Now on that day, Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated in Sarajevo, Bosnia. Now I'm guessing you probably don't remember a ton about World War I, but I bet the name Archduke Franz Ferdinand probably is in there somewhere. Here's a little better picture of him and his awesome mustache. He was heir to the throne of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. His uncle, Emperor Franz Joseph, was in power. He was 84 years old. People were seeing the end. And Archduke Franz Ferdinand had been picked. He was going to be the next leader of the large Austro-Hungarian Empire. And on June 28th, he was killed. Quick side note, 100 years ago was also the heyday for fantastic mustaches. If you're anything like me, you would like to see a return to the grand era of mustaches. I think our facial hair is much too unexciting today. That's a different talk. So what I wanted to do, I want to talk about this day, but I also want to talk about the legacy of World War I. I often think it's the forgotten World War. We spend so much time talking about World War II. And there are good reasons for that. It's an easy war to wrap our head around. Right? It was a necessary and just war. You can't get a better villain than Hitler, right? That's a war we can understand. It made sense. It was right to do. World War I doesn't make sense that same way. It was a much more complicated place. But I would argue that it's a more important world for structuring the world that you currently live in. I don't think you can understand the world we live in today without appreciating the changes brought about by World War I. I'm going to start by looking at some maps. So this is a map of Europe before World War I. World War I brought an end to three major empires: the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Russian Empire. That map is very, very different from the one today. So if you look at, so this is before the war, here's Europe after the war. Right? This is the Europe that you probably realize and recognize. Like, oh yeah, that's right. All those other countries happened because of World War I. If we look at the Middle East, so you can see the Ottoman Empire has been broken up. You see Syria, Iraq. If we delve a little deeper, if we want to understand Middle East politics, if we want to understand what's playing out there, it helps to appreciate that after World War I, the French and the British came in and said, let's make some states here. And the French and the British, they like straight lines. Straight lines make sense to them. Straight lines don't always make sense when you have religious and ethnic divides. So understanding the borders of today, we can't appreciate that without thinking about the impact of World War I. And it's not just limited to borders. Culture. So you can't really see here, but this is a picture of Picasso, one of Picasso's paintings. Farewell to Arms, Ernest Hemingway. So expressionism, modernism, all of these things grow out of the angst and frustration or blossom out of World War I. Literature change, art changes, philosophy changes. All this experience of the Great War flips how we understand culture. Maybe one of my favorite examples is Dada, or Dadaism. If you've heard of this, you probably think it's pretty fantastic, right? So the Dada movement emerges after World War I, and they reject everything. They're basically nihilist. You know, they want to challenge every cultural norm, everything that society and humanity believes. They were artists that were anti-art. It's pretty fantastic, right? This was Marcel Duchamp. My apologies if I butcher the pronunciation there. But this is one of the more famous paintings out of Dadaism. And clearly not a nice way to treat this painting, and then it's named L-H-O-O-Q, and I don't know French, but I'm told that if you pronounce that in French, it translates as, she is hot in the ass, right? Mona Lisa doesn't need that. All right, but so we see this. So coming out of World War I, not only do borders change, do international politics change, but our conceptions of art, literature, philosophy, all of that music evolved. So it's an important time. I think it's worth our time to reflect a little bit on it. I'm going to start and return back to June 28th. On June 28th, Archduke Franz Ferdinand was in Sarajevo, Bosnia, down here. He was on a trip meeting people, pressing the flesh, kind of showing the Austro-Hungarian Empire his face. This was a big thing. And he was there, and he wasn't real happy that he was there. It was the last day of his trip, and he was looking forward to getting home and seeing his children. So he had 3 children. He was on the trip with his wife, Sophie. Now, what I think is fascinating about all of this is that during the day, he sent a telegram to his children saying, we're excited to see you. We'll see you in a few days. Mom and I are going to get on the train and head back home. But June 28th was already a pretty bad day for Sophie and the Archduke, because in 1900, they were forced to sign an oath of renunciation. And as oaths go, this was a pretty bad one. They were forced to say that their children would never rise to the throne. They could never be the emperor of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Well, we ask why? Why did this happen? Well, Sophie was not from proper Habsburg royalty. In fact, she was the personal assistant, they called it lady in waiting, for the woman that everybody thought that the Archduke should marry. But he said, no, I shall marry out of love. Always choose love, my friend, right? All right, so the Archduke marries his true love, and they say, you know what? Your kids can never be in power. And that happened. They were forced to sign that on June 28th, 1900. So this was kind of a bad day for them to begin with. The plan for the day, June 28th, 1914, was they were going to ride in a parade. They were going to ride in a parade down the main road in Sarajevo, and then they were going to stop at City Hall for a brief talk, little meeting, and then head off to a museum tour, lunch, on the train back to Vienna. It was going to be a good day. It's important to note that the Archduke's visit, had been announced months in advance. Everybody knew it was going, and the actual parade route had also been announced, so everybody knew what was happening. Now, when this bit of news travels to Serbia, there's a young man who thinks he's going to change history and go and assassinate the Archduke Franz Ferdinand. His name was Gavrilo Princip. He was a young man, 18 years old, Serbian nationalist, who was still angry, very, very angry, that Bosnia was no longer part of Serbia, that the Austro-Hungarian Empire had taken Bosnia, had taken parts of Serbia away from Serbia, and he was determined to do something to prevent that, or to return that. So he reached out to his buddy, Nedjeljko Kabrinović, and they said, we'd like to carry out a plot to assassinate the Archduke. Now, these guys didn't have the means to do that, so they had to go to somebody in the Serbian military intelligence and say, hey, we'd like to do this, can you help? And they said yes. They also met with a Serbian nationalist organization called the Black Hand, who was famous for carrying out attacks. And they said, all right, we will smuggle you into Bosnia. We will give you arms. We'll give you 5 other individuals, and you can carry out this attack. We think this is worthwhile. So they're smuggled in. Here's a picture of the parade route. So this is the route that the car was supposed to go along. This is the parade. Most of the watchers are right here. City Hall was right up there. A handful of the assassins were early. Kabrinović was here, and Princip was there. Kabrinović had a fuse bomb. Princip had a rifle. And one of the 7 was supposed to get a shot off. So as the car is coming down, and it's you can see the car here. It was an open car. The Archduke wanted a car so that he could see the people and the people could see him, but also making him a very, very easy target. As he's moving down the main way, he goes past a couple of the first 2 assassins, but they chicken out. They don't do anything. They just let the car go by. The next person up is Kabrinović. He's got his fuse bomb. He's not going to waste this opportunity. He takes the fuse bomb and slams it against the light post to activate it, and then takes it and flings it in the direction of the car of the oncoming Archduke. But I forgot. He forgot that there's a 10-second delay, right? So the bomb hits the car, and some say actually bounced off the Archduke's face and hits the ground, rolls behind the car, and blows up in front of the next following car, injuring 12 people. Now, at this point, Kobrinovic has his cyanide, a little vial of cyanide. He takes the cyanide and he jumps into the river, hopefully, assuring his death. So he will commit this act and then die. But he forgot to check the depth of the river, 4 inches. So he's 4-inch river, and he got bad cyanide, right? Which just made him vomit but not die. So the authorities come down, pull him out of the river, rough him up pretty bad, and then take him into custody. Now at this point, the driver of the Archduke takes off, right? They're going high speed. They're going to go high speed and make it to City Hall before anybody else can take a shot at him. And they go flying by Princeps. No chance for him to get a shot. And surprisingly, when they get to City Hall, the Archduke isn't all that upset. In sort of traditional Habsburg, way, he's like, it's no big deal. And then the conversation is, well, what do we do for the rest of the day? Do we cancel all the events? Do we go home? Can we still go to the museum? Can we still do lunch? And they said, well, you probably shouldn't do the museum. But the Archduke insisted and said, we've got to go. I want to go to the hospital. And I want to visit the 12 people that were injured in the attack earlier today. So then deliberations began. All right, how do we get there? The quickest way is to go down and take a right turn at this little block right there, which is the Schiller Emporium, right? It was some say it was a sandwich shop, and you could get food and whatnot there. Take a right there and head up onto Franz Joseph Highway. But that would require a turn. And his police escorts say, no, your best plan is to get back on the main road and go all the way down. It'll be long, but we can go fast. We can get a high speed, and if there are any remaining assassins, they'll never be able to get a shot off. That's what we do. So that was the plan. While this is taking place, our other individual, Princeps, has actually walked to the Schiller Emporium. He's sitting right there. And this is one of the great discussions or debates in history. There's a picture of the Schiller Emporium right there, is whether he got a sandwich. Right? Some say he went for a sandwich. And if you think about it, you know what's coming. You know where the story ends. If he went there to get a sandwich, that's a sandwich that changed history. Right? I love that story. Unfortunately, it's not true. He didn't get a sandwich. Or at least there's not enough historical evidence to suggest that a sandwich is what motivated him to move to that corner. He did go to the corner, but I don't think a sandwich changed history. Nevertheless, he's standing on that corner as the Archduke's car is flying down this street, going too fast to be attacked by anybody along the road there. There are 2 police cars ahead of them. When they get to this corner where they were supposed to keep going straight, the first 2 police cars make a mistake and turn right. Maybe they weren't informed of what was supposed to happen. Maybe they got confused. But those 2 cars turn right at the Schiller Emporium. The car that the Archduke is in also turns right. Somebody in the car immediately says to the driver, stop, we're not supposed to be turning here. Stop the car and turn around. The driver stops the car and tries to put it in reverse. When he does that, it takes him probably 2 or 3 seconds because it doesn't go into gear right away. And while the car is stopped, as it comes to a stop, 8 feet away just happens to be Gavrilo Princip. Amazed at his luck, that his target just stops right in front of him. He pulls out his pistol, shoots the Archduke in the neck, shoots Sophie in the abdomen, and then is grabbed by police in the area. After being shot, Sophie turns to the Archduke and says, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" And he says, it is nothing. And then he turns to her and says, "Don't die on me. Live for our children." Right? This drama is fantastic. And so as they drive away, people keep asking him, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And he keeps saying, "It is nothing. It is nothing." By 11:30, both of them are dead. And the first domino in the World War I has fallen, right? So the Archduke has been murdered. This is what begins. And we have to be careful because World War I could have begun, there are a number of ways it could have started. If this assassination doesn't happen, it doesn't mean we miss World War I, but maybe, right? That's a fun historical question. All right, so let's jump back and look at what happens here. So after the Archduke is killed, Austria is angry. And they turn to Serbia and say, "You're going to pay for this. Basically, you either surrender to us now or agree to this long list of things, or we're going to war with you." At which point, Austria says, "Oh, wait, we better check with Germany. Germany, is this okay if we do that?" And Germany says, all right, we're kind of all Germans. That's fine. We got your back. We'll give you a blank check. You do what you need to do. Well, then Serbia turns to its buddy, Russia. Says, hey, Russia, we got some problems with these Austrians and Germans. Will you get our back? Russia says, okay. And so you slowly see the pieces falling into place where suddenly you move towards World War I. Britain, early on, Britain is like, I don't know. You know, France and Germany, you guys fight all the time. We don't really know if we want to get involved. We may stay back. The one thing Great Britain says, don't you dare invade Belgium. We don't care about France, Germany, Russia. No, Belgium, don't you touch it. Belgian neutrality must stand. All right, so back and forth. On August 1st, Germany declares war on Russia. On August 3rd, Germany declares war on France. Britain is still like, we're good, no problem. On August 5th, Germany uses the von Schlieffen plan to invade France through Belgium. And then Britain's like, all right, that's it, we're in, right? And so we fall into this world war. 4 years later, 16 million dead, 20 million casualties. Horrific numbers. And as I think about this event, and as I reflect on what happened in World War I, what strikes me is how it didn't have to happen. I think World War II had to happen. Somebody had to stop Hitler, right? You couldn't get around that. But World War I, we could have avoided that. And if you look at some of the discourse between these individuals, they're all related, right? They're all cousins. So the king of Great Britain and the Kaiser from Germany and Tsar Nicholas from Russia, they're all cousins, which is kind of crazy to think about. But Tsar Nicholas from Russia and Wilhelm, Willie, they're sending each other telegrams, signing them. Your affectionate Nicky. Your very sincere and devoted friend and cousin, Willie. Right? I mean, so these people liked each other. There was also dense networks of trade keeping these countries together. So I think there's a major lesson when we think about World War I and what happened here is that it didn't happen to happen, and what could have stopped it. As we look out at our world today, as I look out at our world, I see many guerrilla principles out there. And by that I mean that there are many little incidents that could pull the world into violence. Maybe not a world war, but something similar. I mean, think about the U.S. involvement in Syria right now. The Obama administration didn't want to touch Syria, wanted nothing to do with that. And events moved in a direction where we've been pulled in. And we don't know where that involvement is going to end up. And you can think about Latin America, you can think about Asia, you can think about Africa, the Middle East. There are many, many such events that can trip us up. Bring the world into violence, into conflict. And so on Constitution Day, when it's our responsibility to think about our government and our role in that process, I think it's useful to reflect on ways in which we can help prevent another violent event like World War I. How do we get involved? How do we engage our politicians and make sure that they don't fall prey to the same traps that led us down to World War I? So I advise everybody, go out and get a book on World War I. There are a lot of them. I got a lot. You can borrow mine if you want. And start to think more about this and use this 100th anniversary to think more about violence and global violence as well. Thank you.